Max Crosby believes Aaron Rodgers is going to have a big season in 2025, even though he'll be 42 in December. And not just that, he hopes Rodgers will do it in Las Vegas. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. The Raiders have been linked to Rodgers in free agency, which is just 5 days away. But recently the focus has shifted. Now Sam Darnold, who is set to become an unrestricted free agent, is getting attention. There have also been rumors about Russell Wilson because of his connection to Pete Carroll, and even some talk about Justin Fields. Personally, I think the Steelers will prioritize Justin Fields over Russell Wilson. And as for the Raiders, I really hope they don't go after Wilson. But Rodgers? That's an interesting choice. Yes, he's 41 and there are risks. Only 10 quarterbacks in NFL history have started games at that age, and besides Tom Brady, none had much success. Plus, Rodgers hasn't had an above-average season since 2021 when he was 37. But let's be real. If you watched the Jets last season, the biggest problem wasn't Rodgers. He might not be at his MVP level anymore, but he still played well. If the Raiders bring him in and also draft a young quarterback like Jackson Dart, Will Howard, or Jalen Milroe, they could have a solid plan. And with that number 6 overall pick, they could get a future star. Maybe even someone like Genty, though I have a feeling Shedeur Sanders won't be available by then. Some fans think he'll still be on the board, but others believe the Raiders shouldn't draft him at all. What do you think? Should the Raiders take a shot at Rodgers, or is it too risky? I just saw a mock draft where this guy is going in the 20s in the first round. If you run a PFF mock draft, he falls to the second round almost every time. That's crazy. Now back to Aaron Rodgers. He could be a great bridge quarterback. Imagine drafting someone like Jalen Milroe in the third round and letting him learn behind a legend. I know Tom Brady is the GOAT, but Rodgers is still one of the best to ever do it. Before we move forward, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for daily Raiders content. Let's try to get this video to 100 likes. That would mean the world to me. All right, big news. Gardner Minshew has officially been released. It's a bit of a mixed feeling. On one hand, it's good because the Raiders can now explore other options. But on the other hand, many of us thought he could be a solid bridge quarterback, an experienced veteran to hold things down. Unfortunately, his numbers weren't great. Just 2,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. That's just not good enough. Looking ahead, the Raiders are focused on finding the right quarterback, whether through free agency, which starts in 5 days, or the draft. Within the next week, we should have a clearer picture of what they plan to do with that number. 6th overall pick. Speaking of the draft, Ashton Jeanty's name keeps rising. A month ago, he was projected as a late first-round pick, maybe going to the Broncos or Chargers. But now, he's showing up in almost every top 10 mock draft. And honestly, I wouldn't mind the Raiders using the 6th pick on him. He's a special talent. According to Mike Sando from The Athletic, NFL executives believe the Raiders will either trade for or sign a veteran quarterback instead of drafting one. One executive even mentioned that new head coach Pete Carroll is fully committed to running the ball. So does that mean the Raiders should go all in on Jeanty? Let me know what you think. We all remember Pete Carroll and Marshawn Lynch, right? Well, last year the Raiders ranked dead last in the NFL for rushing yards, averaging fewer than 80 yards per game. It was honestly tough to watch. But now, with Pete Carroll as the new head coach, he's making improving the run game a top priority, and he mentioned this during last week's Combine. Now, you don't have to grab Jeanty with the number 6 pick. There are plenty of other talented players in later rounds of the draft. The Raiders could pick a great running back in the 2nd or even 3rd round. Guys like Caleb Johnson from Iowa are being mocked to the Raiders, and there are a lot of other options out there. But just to show what a guy like Jeanty could bring, look at players like Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson from the last 2 drafts. Both were selected early in the 1st round, well before the 15th pick. Sure, the Falcons haven't had much team success with these picks, but we've seen the impact that running backs like Gibbs and Robinson had. For example, when David Montgomery got hurt for the Lions, Gibbs stepped up immediately. Now, a lot of people thought it was too early to draft these running backs in the 1st round, but the truth is they've proved their worth. So while the Raiders don't have to take Jeanty at number 6, it shows what kind of impact a top running back can have. Speaking of running backs, there's been a lot of talk about the Raiders possibly going after Najee Harris. I wouldn't argue that Harris would be a huge boost for this team. Personally, I'd make him the RB1, with Sincere McCormick as RB2, and then probably draft a rookie running back in the later rounds to add depth. The Raiders have plenty of money to make it happen. Personally, I'd prefer the Raiders draft a running back this year because the class is really special and full of talent. Now, the Raiders are also looking to add a one wide receiver this offseason. According to The Athletic, that's part of their plan. This would likely push Jacoby Myers to the due spot. As for Davante Adams, I think it's safe to say he's not returning to Las Vegas, but shout out to the front office for that amazing trade. I know the Raiders will take that extra third-round pick in a heartbeat. The problem is there aren't many clear-cut #1 wide receiver available in free agency. A lot of the big names are getting older. Stephon Diggs, former Raider Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, and Brandon Cooks. Even though these players would all be great additions, none of them are true #1s anymore, and they all come with age concerns. One guy to keep an eye on is Chris Godwin. There's some speculation linking him to the Raiders, mainly because of his connection to part owner Tom Brady and former Buccaneers coach John Spytek. But as someone who lives in Tampa, I honestly think Godwin's staying with the Bucs. Just a quick note on running backs in the draft. John Spytek drafted Bucky Irving in the 5th round, and look at the season he had. He was a total beast. This offseason has been different for the Raiders, and I'm feeling more confident than I have in a long time. They've been making smart moves, bringing in Pete Carroll and John Spytek, and with Tom Brady behind the scenes, I really believe the Raiders are headed in the right direction. That's it for me today. Hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and most importantly, let me know in the comments. Do you want Aaron Rodgers to join the Las Vegas Raiders? Yes or no? Peace.